All right, here I am with another PSA for Black men regarding prostate cancer. And right off the bat, let me just tell you, I ended up in the emergency room this morning. As you can see, I'm back home. And so things worked out as well as could be expected under the circumstances. But I want to warn you of some things so that you don't end up in a life and death emergency room scenario like I did this morning. I live in Palm Springs, as I mentioned, and my doctor and all the medical professionals that have been helping me are in Los Angeles, which are 2.5 hours away. I found myself in a vehicle with my lovely, lovely life partner driving me there at 1 o'clock in the morning, driving me all the way to Los Angeles to go to their emergency room. That is not a fun place to be. The emergency room is not fun to be, a fun place to be, nor is being in a car driving there. Not a fun place to be. So let me give you some advice how to avoid ending up in the emergency room and what brought me there. Now, I am so blessed to have someone in my life that loves me so much that she constantly checks certain things about me. And I don't check these things for myself. You might want to check these things on yourself. She has been doing this even before the prostate cancer, the prostatectomy. She's been doing this for a while. She grabs my legs, my ankles, and she squeezes them. And she looks at them to see if there's a recovery from the squeeze, or if there's an indentation from her fingers. She's been doing this for the last few years. Just not every night, but just like once every couple of months, she'll just grab my leg and I'll say, baby, and she squeezes so tight, you're gonna leave a fingerprint on my bones. She squeezes them. And to date, everything has been fine. She did that last night and she felt something very different. Felt like, to her, it felt like bubble wrap. Things were just popping and crunching. She said, it feels spongy. And my legs did not look like they were swollen. But she said, you're retaining water. Like, I don't know why. So here's what you need to look out for. The water retention after your surgery could be an indication of other things. Your kidneys may not be processing the water properly or the fluids properly, and they could be building up in your body. You want to check your bag, your catheter bag, to make sure it's filling up as you go through the day. So what compounded my issue was I looked at my bag, and my bag had 0 amount of urine in it for the last 6 to 7 hours. But yet, I had this squishy legs. I also had, I'm gonna be real with you, my scrotum, it was swollen the size of a very large orange or maybe a very small grapefruit. Didn't hurt, but it was swollen that large. And that kind of freaked me out. It had been getting bigger, but at this moment, I was like, okay, with these signs, I better figure out what's going on. So I called my doctor. I called the emergency urologist on call at UCLA, described the symptoms, and they said, let me talk to your surgeon because this doesn't sound right. The surgeon ordered a test for my kidneys. And he said, look, you need to get in here because if you have a real issue with your kidneys, we've got to take another step. There's something else going on. So we got in the car at 1 o'clock in the morning, drove 2.5 hours. Bless her heart, she drove the whole way while I was sitting there praying and internally lamenting and trying to keep a positive mindset through this new episode. And when we got there, I will tell you, the folks at UCLA emergency room, unbelievable how they took care of me so quickly There were a ton of people there. There were people in beds, in hallways. I somehow got triaged, and in a room within 10 to 15 minutes. I was in my own room. And the nurses and the assistants and other doctors were, on-call doctors were running in and out, hooking me up to everything and taking blood and doing blood samples and blood cultures. And I just felt that I was really under great care. So there's two things. Get good care through this process. Find the best care you can. Secondly, find somebody that supports you. Maybe that's number one. Find somebody that will support you through this process and even before. If you don't have a loved one in your life that does that for you right now, find someone, connect with someone, hire someone. That's important because they will pick things up that you're not aware of. They will point things out to you that you don't see yourself. So I'm telling you, those two things are very important. So what happens after this? I've got blood samples taken. I'm on these machines and they're checking everything out. And the next thing I know, my doctor, the surgeon, 4 o'clock in the morning, he shows up. He shows up at the emergency room. He says, after talking to you, I couldn't sleep. I knew you were coming here. I've got to see what's going on. So he felt my legs, the sponginess. He called it Rice Krispies because it snaps, it crinkles when you touch the legs. He says, you got the Rice Krispies. I said, yeah, but what's that? I don't eat that cereal, so what's going on? He says, well, it's not usual, but it's normal. Okay, a little bit of relief. What does that mean? He says, well, it's CO2. After surgery, we pump your abdomen, we pump your body with CO2, and it disperses and it finds places to go. In this case, in your case, it went to the legs. Typically, they raise the bladder, they lower the bladder, and when that happens, when everything is put back together, the CO2 works its way up closer to your clavicle. So he's seen where CO2, the Rice Krispies are up in your chest and even around your scrotum, but he's not seen them down by the legs before. He says his procedure of not lowering the bladder is probably the cause of them going down instead of up, because that's the only place they were. They weren't in my arms, they weren't in my chest, the Rice Krispies were in my legs. So he says, I'm good with that. They'll dissipate within 24, 78, 72 hours. In some cases, it may take days, but he thinks that when you're gone soon. I said, okay. He says, and we also got your results back from your kidney. And I'm happy to report your kidneys are great. They're normal, which means I'm processing fluids. So but something's still not right because my bag, a catheter bag, was dry. Now, I will tell you, by the time I got to UCLA emergency room, there was a measure of urine that was in there. Maybe it was the ride in the car over the freeway, the jostling, that knocked something loose, I don't know. And he didn't know either. So, what did he do? He went in and he took a look inside. He used some way to look inside to find whether or not the balloon in the bladder was in the right place, if there was any kinks in the catheter. All of those things, he just went over and over every detail based on the surgery. He said the surgery went so very well. It surprises me that there was anything that would be wrong at this stage. But he did say that as long as your kidneys and your liver are okay, he says, I can fix everything else. So the good news is your liver's okay, your kidney's okay. I can fix if there's anything else wrong. So what he did was he flushed the catheter. Now, I know I'm making this a long video, but these are important things to understand. He flushed the catheter backward up into the bladder 3 times. It was not a fun experience. But after he flushed it, he flooded the bladder, he pulled that same fluid back out and did it again. and did it again. He says, I want to make sure that this thing is flowing well and you have no issues. And so if there was any blockage there at all, those have been taken care of. So connect it back. Here's my story. I ended up in the emergency room with Rice Krispies and a swollen scrotum and a flushed out catheter. By 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I was released from an emergency. Now, I was staying out at a hotel on site in LA, and he says, I want to see you at 11 o'clock the following morning, which I did. I went over and met with him at 11 o'clock, and we just talked it all through. Me and my gorgeous life partner, we sat there and we talked it all through, what was happening, what had happened, what everything meant, and what was normal, what was not normal, and everything is beautiful. I will tell you that this was a scary, scary moment for us, but it turned out okay. So if you experience any of those things, they may be scary, but here's the deal. Keep that mindset positive, committed, with confidence that you're going to get through this, and you'll be back. Now my scrotum is still swollen. Let me tell you something a little bit about the swollen scrotum. And I know this is a long video, but this is important. There's a lot of work that goes on during this prostatectomy. And what happens is all in that area where your sexual organs are. And so it's not unusual that your scrotum would swell. It's almost as if it's protecting itself. It's protecting the testicles by retaining more water in your scrotum. And he said, and when he looked at mine, he says, you know what? I've seen much, much worse. I said, mine is almost the size of a grapefruit. You've seen worse than this? Yes, I've seen worse. I said, okay. He says, I said, how long is this gonna last? He says, well, it should go away. It'll dissipate. But you've gotta walk. You've gotta walk. You've gotta drink lots of fluids so your body flushes itself out. The little bit of urine that was in my bag was concentrated and dark. It says you've gotta drink more fluids. You've gotta walk. I was gonna make this video as I was walking around the neighborhood, but I decided that it might be more difficult to describe all this while trying to walk around the block. So that's why you got a 13-minute video from me standing in my house, walking around, okay? So with that said, I just want to encourage you to keep striving forward. I hope some of this has helped as you move forward. There's more to know about the catheter, the fact that you can have a big bag that you use overnight. It holds a lot, and you kind of carry it to the side, hook it to something below the bed at night, or on the lower part of the bed at night. And during the day, like right now, you have a leg bag, which straps to your leg and connects to the catheter. And so that way you can walk around hands-free, all right? So anyway, that's all I have for you now. Again, sorry for the long video, but I think this was important stuff. It was something that shocked us yesterday, but we got through it, and we'll get through the rest of it. I've got another 5 to 6 days of this catheter, and I had another great bowel movement today. Yay! This one was good because I did not need a fleet enema or anything. It was fantastic. So who knew I would get so excited for taking a dump? All right, I'll talk to you again next time. I hope you're doing well. Stick with the program. Get the best care you can. Get somebody that supports you. Always be grateful. Give when you can. And love yourself before you choose. Talk to you soon.